Hey there, everybody. Steve the Amateur Historian, and tonight, whatever time it may be for you, I'm going a little bit outside of my regular parameter because, as those of you know who follow my channel, for the most part, a lot of what I do is very much Oregon, Portland-centric history, mysteries, whatever that may be. But there has been something that has kind of become one of these, it's kind of becoming like a top-tier mystery that a lot of people, especially in the past month, have really started to dive into. And I don't, I feel, at least at this time, you can never say never, but I feel like this is something that's, we're probably never going to find a resolution to it, but it's such a strange and bizarre thing. And fortunately, there was a Reddit page out there that goes by the name of the individual that we're going to discuss here. But last week, Nexpo, one of my favorite YouTubers, posted the 13th edition in his series of disturbing things he sees from around the internet, and those are always really good videos and really troubling. Like, a lot of people say, here's some creepy things from around the internet, but it's just some ghost videos and random stuff. But Nexpo finds stuff that genuinely emotionally kind of hits you in the face. And I believe it was the last segment he did. He discussed in 1989, and both these instances have been published on YouTube, so you can find those videos right now. You can also see Nexpo's video on it, and a couple of weeks before him, Blame It on George also discussed this in a video of his, and I think those are the only two YouTubers thus far that have really delved into it. I saw like a reaction video pop up in relation to it, but there really isn't a whole lot on YouTube about this. And just since I saw it on Nexpo's video, again, about a week ago, it's really stuck with me. You know, lots of interesting things you see on YouTube or online or whatever, they'll kind of hang with you maybe for a day and then they fade away. But this thing has really stayed with me. And then I saw Believe It on George also discuss this, and it's helped kind of pound it even more into my head. And this is the mystery of a reported missing woman by the name of Joanna Lopez. Now, again, there's a Reddit group community, the terminology, that's just called Joanna Lopez, and there's been a lot of posting in there. It hasn't even been up for a month, but there's been a lot of posting there, and a lot of people have really dedicated a lot of time to trying to maybe figure out who this is. But before we get to that part of trying to understand, let's go through, you and me, what happened here, what occurred that ultimately now, I mean, more than 30 years later, has gotten everybody's attention. So, as I understand it, it was January, the end of the day, January 14th, 1989. It was the end of the broadcast day for Channel 5 in Chicago, Illinois. So they were concluding matters for the day. They play, you know, the sign-off that all channels did back then, because they used to not play content overnight. It would just go to color bars because they figured, well, everyone's asleep. And in this broadcast, they play the Star Spangled Banner, and right as it ends, there's a zoom in on the American flag, and then it cuts to this. A somewhat grainy image overall, showing a little missing banner, and this very kind of blown out, almost kind of creepy. The picture genuinely creeped me out, I think, because of the quality of it. I'm one of those people that's very easily kind of shaken and kind of unnerved by really kind of sketchy or kind of scary imagery, especially when it's tied into something very mysterious, something unsolved, which is where this situation lingers. Now, there's no further information on the matter shown in this banner except the missing banner, the image of the woman, the name below it that says Joanna Lopez, and then a number to call. There's nothing beyond that. There's no age listed, height, weight, circumstances of when they were last seen, how long they've been missing, all those things that, especially nowadays, we're pretty adept at seeing pop up whenever there is a missing persons case. And I mean, it was the same back. I've seen video and images from the 80s when they would put missing people banners up on TV, and they would include those, general details. But in this situation, it's just a black background with a grainy picture, a name, and a number to call. Now, according to, I first saw it on the Blame It on George video, and I've also seen it on the Reddit page in relation to it. It's been stated, it doesn't seem like it's been 100% verified, maybe it has, but it seems more like the attitude has been like, it was reported that this was the case. But there were claims that when the broadcast day ended, and that image popped up on screen, that it stayed up all night. It essentially replaced the color bars that you would normally see throughout the night. So I don't know if that's verified. That's the claim that's been made. The video that I've seen that's available online, I think only shows maybe 2 minutes at most after the broadcast day ends and the Joanna Lopez missing banner pops up. But even then, staying up for even 2 minutes when, everything's supposed to essentially shut down and go to color bars for the night, even that alone is very intriguing and bizarre and kind of chilling. The potential that it was up all night, for like 6 hours is even more so. But what really makes things crazy, I mean, this is already strange and mysterious, this thing that pops up. And what are the odds that all these many years later, this was 1989, this was over 30 years ago, what are the odds that this little piece of video would not only be saved, but it would be randomly posted on YouTube? Again, as it's, I think it was roughly about 6 years ago. I want to say it was 2015 when the 1989 version was published onto YouTube. And I'm not certain how many people, I'm sure people watched it and saw the Joanna Lopez thing at the end and were like, maybe taken a bit aback by it, but maybe not, it's something you see and it's kind of strange and it kind of shakes you up, but then you kind of like, well, that was weird. And then you kind of move on with your life. But then a completely different YouTube channel, actually a couple years earlier, published what essentially almost is the exact same thing, except this happened in 1991. Roughly 2 years later, same channel, Channel 5 in Chicago, end of the broadcast day. They play the Star Spangled Banner. They zoom in on the American flag as it finishes. And then this. The same thing pops up. It's not just another missing persons case pops up after the broadcast day is supposed to be ended. And again, supposed to be color bars, but it's Joanna Lopez again. This upload, and I don't know if it's just, one was recorded on, maybe higher grade tape. I don't know exactly, obviously, like what the format would have been, whether they've been taking it off of VHS or off of random files they may have had. But this 1991 version is a little bit more crisp, but it's the exact same thing. So anybody who sees the 1989 video, you're already intrigued. Why is this popping up at this particular time when, you know, that there's not supposed to be anything else playing? And that pops up and again, presumably stays on all night. Why would that happen? Who was responsible? Like somebody had to have, you know, at the station made a mistake, you know, touched this button, did this, that, and the other that led to that popping up. And then the exact same thing happens 2 years later, and it's the exact same instance happens, and it's the exact same individual, it's the exact same poster. Like, what are the odds that somebody would do that accidentally? The same thing with the same poster reporting the same missing person 2 different times in the course of 2 years, and that's just an accident. Now, people have, obviously, you know, and especially when things like this pop up and it's the next big mystery that's been discovered, you know, all the crazy things you can find online, you always have to keep open the possibility that this is some kind of a hoax, or that this was, for whatever reason, fabricated. And maybe it was fabricated way back around 1989 when this initially happened. Maybe it was done sometime between 1991 and I believe roughly 2012 when the 1991 video first popped up on YouTube. I mean, it may have been available somewhere else on some other site before then. Now, the reason it's hard to believe that this would have been fabricated sometime after 1989 is because the clip of this 1989, you know, end of the broadcast day where this missing persons poster pops up, is that it was posted on a YouTube channel that's like, it wasn't just some random person who found an old VHS tape was like, I'm gonna start uploading random clips because why not? VHS, it's nostalgia. But it was put specifically up on the Museum of Classic Chicago Television. Like, this is like a verified YouTube channel that actually is run by this organization. This wasn't just some random YouTuber. So the odds that a museum of Chicago television would intentionally fabricate something, especially something like this, like if I click, because I have the video accessible right here, it's about 8 minutes long because it does the last few things leading up to the end of the broadcast day. And their description here, it was posted January 12th, 2015. So actually almost exactly, what would that be, 26 years ago to the day from when this reportedly happened. Now, under their description, this is what it says under the description for the 1989 clip, because this, here are some public service announcements, then meditation, and finally the station sign-off for WMAQ Channel 5. It includes, and then there's a list of 5 PSAs that happen: meditation with Reverend Claude Tiers of 1 Corinthians Baptist Church, WMAQ TV Chicago station sign-off, and national anthem. And then it just says missing child alert slide - Joanna Lopez. So they aren't even, like, it's just part of the listing of just the various things that are in this particular clip they uploaded. It's given no serious focus in the description. So even if this museum of television was that crooked that they would fabricate something like this themselves and then put it online, the only reason you would fabricate something like that is if you wanted to, you know, create a stir, like, oh, look at this wild clip we found, get some attention towards your museum. But even in this upload, they very passively just reference it as another item in there. It's given no focus. And then there's, you know, there's a couple paragraphs here kind of discussing more of who they are. So if this was fabricated, it would have probably had to have been done back then, pre-January 14th, 1989. Now, why somebody would do that? Who knows? Because so little is known about this. And people we don't even know if this Joanna Lopez is actually a real person. There's, that's something that pops up, is maybe this isn't a real person. Obviously, it probably isn't a real person if this whole thing was fabricated, but if this is a real bona fide missing persons slide or banner or whatever you want to call it, then obviously this had to have been a real person. And efforts by multiple people, both on Reddit, Nexpo, and Blame It on George in their own ways, people trying to find information generally around that area of January 1989, when this presumably first time that this slide pops up, trying to see if there was any information that could be found about a Joanna Lopez in or around Chicago, or just generally a Joanna Lopez who's a missing person or went missing somewhere within that time. And a lot of people have really done a lot of diligent digging in and research and trying to find possible people who may be this Joanna Lopez. And one of the most strenuous things about it, I think, is that it's this big thing that a lot of people want to, we want to figure out. It's not just about solving a mystery. It's about, it's people are much more emotionally connected to this thing, because this could very well be a legitimately missing person, someone who maybe experienced something horrible, and people want to get to the bottom of that. It's not, I don't think that a lot of the people in here, it's all about trying to be the one that figures it out, and then they can, stroke their ego and say, I'm the one that figured out what all of you couldn't. Certainly some of that can play a part in something like this, where this is, for October into November, this whole Joanna Lopez mystery is kind of a flavor of the week kind of situation, where it's one of these things that a lot of people are diving into. And I'm discussing it, one, because I'd like to, keep it out there as much as the next person, but there really hasn't been, and I've seen a lot of them over the past couple of years, there just really hasn't been, and I can't really explain why, but there hasn't really been anything else out there that has kept my attention as much as this whole Joanna Lopez thing. It just sticks with me. And maybe it's, the strangeness of the image. It's the oddity of knowing so little about what this could all mean. Maybe it doesn't mean a whole lot. Maybe it's a big deal. And the image, I think that's one of the things that just stuck with me. The image, when I first saw it, it's so grainy, and people have tried to clear it up and try to, maybe get, but it's so hard when you're working with an image that's so, it's not just pixelated, but it's blown out in the whites, and it's overly darkened in the dark places. And, the white areas around the eyes, that's what really got me, because it almost looks like they're like these white beam eyes staring at you, and that really kind of shook me up, especially when you think about, again, the strangeness of all this and the mystery of all of this. But it does appear, I'm kind of looking at it as I'm discussing with you, likely a woman. Some people have wondered if the image might actually be male, which doesn't seem like it would make a lot of sense if this is someone named Joanna, but it appears to be a fairly young person, with fairly short hair, kind of thick on top, but kind of growing down to the ears and not really growing far back. So fairly short hair. This one Reddit post that I'm looking at, this person, First Appointment is the Redditor who actually went on here and tried to edit the picture, I guess, to make it look, again, more, I want to say legible, even though that's more of a writing term. but it's a person in a white shirt. Seems to be a very straight, very narrow, straight down bridge of the nose. I didn't even, this says that wearing big 80s glasses, that was very common in the 80s. And I didn't even notice that till now, that, yeah, you can kind of see. Because I was wondering why it looked so dark through here. And I realized, oh, well, there's glasses. So, it's dark here, and then below the glasses it's not quite as dark. But I mean, the hair and the glasses, those are like some of the only real strongly discernible details. Everything else is just kind of indistinct. And here is the Reddit page. This is where the most kind of in-depth efforts are being really made to just kind of, I don't even know if it's really about, I mean, obviously people would like to know what happened, but it's really just about kind of understanding this. It's such a strange thing. And you can even see here, this Reddit page was created less than a month ago, October 14th, 2021. So this has been a fairly recent discovery. I don't know who made the first connection here between these videos, or these, broadcasts that occurred some 2 years apart. That, in addition to just the strangeness of this being placed where it was at the as they called it, the end of the broadcast day, which I remember those as a kid. When that Star Spangled Banner ended, it went to color bars every time. I grew up in Portland. I don't know how it was elsewhere, but there was never anything strange that happened. It went boom, color bars, and it stayed like that till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, whenever it was. All right, so I'm now on. I want to go through some of the information that's here on Reddit. These are people that have dove into this a lot further than I have. Again, I've only been knowledgeable about this since like the very start of November. But again, it's a fairly new situation. Here you have, I mentioned earlier, Redditor, first appointment, editing the image, trying to get as much out of it as you can. It says, as you can see, I edited it. You can see a skinny white or black woman, and obviously the name Lopez has a suggests possibly Latin. But yeah, I definitely think, even though obviously the facial features could easily be darkened by the fact that the quality of the image, but I get the feeling that this is definitely a dark-skinned person. Looks between the ages of the mid-20s to late 20s. Some people, I think, have even suggested maybe someone in their teens. But yeah, I get an early, again, obviously I'm not speaking from any, major photographic background, but just from my perspective, looking at it, if I had to guess, I would say this looks like someone who's 20 to 24 years old, if I had to guess, with big 80s glasses, short hair, and a white shirt. So that's the image. A few more details visible. And there's a few, obviously there's a reference to Nexpo. And yeah, he does reference something that I've also seen reference, which there was a woman who has yet to be identified who was discovered in the Chicago area in 1994. An African-American woman who'd actually been killed by a guy, and even the guy that killed her didn't get a name, said that she had been working the streets as a prostitute. And when I look at the images of that woman, because I saw them, there's there's about as many comparable features as not for me. I feel like for again, what little we can discern, I feel like the noses are. I feel like the nose of Joanna Lopez, again, if that's her real name, who knows, I feel like her nose is a little bit thinner and longer. I just feel like the facial features don't quite match up. But again, with the condition of this image, you're playing with possibilities. I don't. If you had to ask me, I don't really think they're the same person. And especially this woman's found at least like 5 years later, and she's just kind of working the streets as a prostitute in Chicago. Maybe Joanna Lopez went missing and was found, and this was just what she was doing later. But I just think it's probably not. And then including the differences between the pictures that you can make out. And you scan down, you have, some people kind of briefly responding. Someone mentioned that she looks really cross-eyed, which might be more... and again, you have these big white spots where the eyes are. So it kind of gives off an essence of being cross-eyed. I don't know if there's enough there to say that that's genuinely the case. And of course, we don't know. Obviously, this is a photograph of a person. Whether it's a bona fide picture of Joanna Lopez or some altered picture that someone created. A picture of someone has been taken to make something here. Now, it looks like there's not a plethora of stuff on this page, but again, this is only, or on this community, but again, this has only been around for almost about 3.5 weeks. The very obscure. Okay, and it looks like this is a post posted here by Chris Polygon. Cross posted. So this is from the Unsolved Mysteries Reddit. So this dives into this a little bit. This is in the Unresolved Mysteries Reddit, but it says, the very obscure disappearance of Joanna Lopez. And this was posted 4 months ago. So this is before Nexpo and Blame It On George's videos were done about it. And, I don't know who first made this connection. Someone out there obviously was the first person to see this very strange end to the broadcast day video and then discover, oh my God, the same exact thing happened 2 years later. What does that mean? But here's the description put out on the Unresolved Mysteries page. On January 14th, 1989, on the NBC television affiliate WMAQ in Chicago, right after the channel signed off for the early morning, a missing person poster was shown for the rest of the morning until the channel signed on again. The image shown on the missing person poster was that of a person with the name Joanna Lopez. The quality of the image is so low that it is very hard to make out the face and the known details of Joanna Lopez's appearance. Along with the image of Joanna Lopez, there was a white ribbon design on the left-hand side of the screen with the text missing. The text, call 312-744-5594, was right below Joanna's name. Beside these details, there was no audio accompanying the missing child poster or any other details about her disappearance and other information like her age and height, as I discussed earlier. The WMAQ channel also showed the same poster after signing off in 1991, where it shows it for about 10 seconds before switching to color bars and tone. Yeah, that's another thing, is when it was shown again in 1991, it was cut off after just a few seconds. It didn't play all night. The quality of the image in this version was slightly higher than the 1989 version, but it's still the same image that we're seeing, the same poster. I have looked through the NamUs, NCMEC, and the Charlie Project websites and found no recorded appearance of the name Joanna Lopez in their databases. I also looked up Joanna Lopez missing 1989 on Google, and no news article or newspaper showed up with any details surrounding her disappearance. And as much as we rely on Google for stuff, I've looked up very general, well, at least what should be general things that should have possible options out there. And a lot of times things that really do apply to what you're looking for, even if you do the search results or you do your searches in quotes that should narrow it down, you'll often have to dig through a lot of garbage before you find some stuff that's actually relevant. It's amazing how crappy Google can be sometimes for how often I use it. This missing person poster after sign-off might be one of the most mysterious potential missing person cases on the internet due to the sheer lack of any information relating to the individual's disappearance and the organization or government agency that created the poster and decided to show it in a television station sign-off of all places to help spread the word about a missing person so they can potentially be found. That's another thing that's really interesting, because obviously a lot of people weren't watching TV that late. Because, I mean, in one part, it's not going to play overnight, so you're essentially watching something that's for it to ultimately end. So not a lot of people are going to even really have their TV on, or if it is on, even really be paying attention when you come to the end of the broadcast day. So why would you if you really wanted to find out where this missing person was, why would you post it then of all times when practically nobody would be paying attention? This is something you show, in the morning or the afternoon or even the evening while people are home and the kids are out of school and people are got home from work and we're sitting down in front of the TV relaxing. But you post it there at that time. A lot of people at that time and place aren't going to see it. So it's very strange if you're going to show a missing person PSA at any time to do it then. I think that's something that's really grabbed people's attention, is like, why such a lack of information? Why is this such a low quality image overall? And why that time to do it? And to do it again 2 years later. And here, this is actually something that I wanted to get into was, update on this. I recently found a series of missing person PSAs that could definitely prove that these pieces of footage are in fact real. Because some people have discussed, again, whether this whole Joanna Lopez thing was, faked. Is this just some kind of ancient ARG or something along those lines? So I'm going to click, because we don't need the audio. I'm going to click on this first one. This is for Kevin Ayotte, I'm guessing is his name. That was posted to YouTube. Yeah, even without even playing, you can see, so this is from 1985, it says. But yeah, see, kind of the similar missing banner, kind of tilted sideways. You have an image, not the best quality, but you can make out a lot more details in this child. But you have, hair color, height, weight, where they were last seen, when they were last seen, and a number to call. But with the number here, you actually have National Center for Missing Youth. So you actually have, in the image, the name applied to this number that you're going to call. Juanita Estevez. Here's another one. Yeah, same things. And these are CBS missing child PSAs. This is another one from 1985. And again, pertinent information and an image that you can actually, gauge what these people look like. So you can see these are kind of comparable. They just were, provided more information and weren't so strangely low quality. They also mention here the skewed angle of the missing banner on these clips are similar to the one shown on the Joanna Lopez missing persons notice clips. The font used for the phone number and the missing child's name also seem to be similar to the one used in Joanna's missing persons notice on WMAQ. Note, these clips supposedly originated from CBS from 1985 to 1986, and unlike Joanna Lopez's missing person notices, have voiceovers, details of the missing person, and even animation. The most important difference is that most of the images are in color and are way clearer in detail. And I'm sure that, I'll say there's probably a lot of comments on this, because this again is a post from a couple months ago. So this is probably one of the earlier references to this in the Reddit community, and possibly just references in general. I saw Queen of Broken Hearts reference. Okay, this is one of the first comments. Wow, this one is strange. I found the number listed. Oh yeah, so the phone, which I haven't really discussed, the phone number, 312-744-5594. And this is the Regional Directory Rape Prevention and Treatment Resources. That is the publication that this number was posted in. And yeah, you can see this is for the Youth Division, Chicago Police Department. And this was their office number. Now, to actually report a rape is it. So, if this is all kosher, and, they're saying call this number in relation to Joanna Lopez, it almost suggests that she was under the age of 18 if this is the youth division, and maybe she was possibly a runaway. I've seen that suggested. Maybe she was a runaway. And if that happened, who knows what her future may have held, and that may be why there's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to really find any information about her other than these two clips. If this is a real person who disappeared around the start of 1989, if she ran away, who knows where she went? Who knows what kind of people she got mixed up with? She could have tried to flee town, hitched a ride with somebody, and, when you stick your thumb out and hitchhike, you never know who's going to pick you up. She could have ended up working the streets, and, it's certainly not out of the norm today, but especially in the 70s and really in the 80s, a lot of women who ended up, working the streets in prostitution. A lot of them ended up victims of serial killers, but a lot of them ended up victims of various other people too, and especially back in like the 70s and 80s. If you were a prostitute and you disappeared, whether you were murdered or what, a lot of people didn't care. The police didn't investigate that hard, and you would end up with situations kind of like this where these people just seem to disappear and nobody knows what happened to them. Obviously, I'm just theorizing right now possibilities that could have happened with this individual. So you see, and then they reference here, it's the Youth Division of the Chicago Police Department. So the number is a legitimate phone number that ties back to like a legal or law enforcement. And I want to say that number, I read that number is no longer valid, which I mean, 30 years ago. It wouldn't surprise me if it never changed. And then here's some 332 comments. Someone suggests maybe she escaped from some kind of juvenile detention or probation. The next comment says, if it weren't for the reappearance of the photo 2 years later, I'd be inclined to believe that. But yeah, that's what's so strange. That it would pop up in 1991, and maybe the 1989 one was legit and put in there at that time on purpose for whatever reason, and maybe the 1991 one was an accident. I'm certainly not an expert in the realm of what news channels, television stations, this footage that they caught. I don't know if the one from 1989 was saved on a video film somewhere, and they just reused that particular clip in 1991 just because they needed a clip of the sign-off with the Star Spangled Banner on it, and they accidentally used this one that they saved from 1989, and without the knowledge that Joanna Lopez clip was at the end of it. But that seems like a stretch. Even just saying it, I kind of feel like I'm talking out of my ass. And if you were playing that exact clip again, wouldn't her missing persons thing just play all through the night again instead of going away after a few seconds? So, I mean, you can hear, even here with me, you can just hear my mind racing as I'm reading about this stuff, because there's just so little known out there that you just start, there's so many directions you can go in. But yeah, there's some discussions here about, possibly escaping from a juvenile detention facility. And, I mean, that in and of itself, places like that, places where young people are taken and kept, even over to, if you want to include, like, mental hospitals and places where people were kept, and sometimes bad things happen to people. Just for a reference, the over here in Oregon, there's a very notorious spot that's pretty much all been torn down, but it was called the Fairview Training Center. It was in Salem, the state capital, and it was this place that people sent their troubled and mentally ill family members. And like so many places like that, a lot of people ended up worse than they were before they went in. But in 1979, and it only got solved a couple years ago, but there was a woman who lived there at the Fairview Training Center named Janie Landers, and she disappeared and was discovered brutally murdered. But it was one of those things where for a long time nobody knew how she even got away or how she ended up where she ended up, and it turned out it was an employee there that had taken her and murdered her. Could she, it's just, when you're dealing with, mental hospitals, or even, again, juvenile centers, sometimes you get some sketchy people working places like that. So you wonder, if she was somebody who was in the juvenile detention system, could that have happened? And it's impossible to say. This is all just on the spot theorization. Yeah, I'm seeing references in here to people showing, if she was someone who escaped, they probably wouldn't care that much. Someone here actually says they attempted to call a number and no one picked up. Because I want to say again that number is no longer the number for youth services. Yeah, and in here somebody says, from the little research they've done, the number is no longer in service. Yeah, but again, and the fact that this was tied directly to the police division makes it seem like it's probably not just a hoax of some kind. And I know it's strange that you have these things popping up in these videos, and it's something that really could be so easily faked, even back in, before 2012, when the 1991 video first popped up on YouTube. And again, I don't know how long that video may have been available before then. You could easily fake what is in this video. It wouldn't take much at all, especially with the low-grade resolution and whatnot of the missing persons banner. I personally, I think it's probably a real thing. And here's another thing, because I went over to, sorry, this is a different thing. I went over to newspapers.com, and I was actually going to do some research, or try to see if I could see that name pop up. And then I saw that Blame It on George had already done that. If I even, let's spread it kind of wide. 1985 to 1991, get my local crap out of there. And I started thinking, because again, we have this name, Joanna Lopez. And see, I mean, there's 69 matches, but nothing for Illinois, where Chicago is. There's 4 for Ohio. But these are all the same article. referencing husbands and stuff from 1990. But yeah, and I started thinking about, because one of the things I have this, for those of you that are new around here, I have this video I do. It's called the series that I do called Historic Murders of Portland. I spent a lot of time looking up these old articles about these old murder cases that have happened in Portland where I live. And you'd be amazed how often even supposedly reliable people will misspell a name or get a name wrong. So obviously Joanna Lopez, that's what we have to go on. But I wonder, you know, I have a friend whose last name was pronounced like Gomez, but it was spelled with an S. So like, could it be someone whose name was maybe pronounced Lopez but ended with an S? But then like you look that up, it's probably going to be, yeah, there's practically nothing. Even these are showing Lopez with a Z. But still, you know, it's like, you think like, could it have been Joanna with one N? Could her real name have been Joe Anna? Like, you know, I went to school with someone who was named Joe Anna. Could it be Joe with an E like that? You know, there's so many ways to spell a certain name. And a lot of times we'll just take down the most common form, which would be that. If somebody says someone's name, somebody hears that this name is Joanna. Now, of course, the distinction from that, because again, I'm talking about like newspapers misreporting things. Like you would assume, you know, before this missing persons poster was put together, you would think somebody had very specific information given to them that showed the proper spelling of a person's name when they're reported missing. And, you know, who initially reported this person missing? Could it have been the detention center she was at? Could it have been her family if she was living with them? Was she living with friends, distant relatives, and they reported her missing? We have no idea. So you'd think in the vein of whoever produced this missing persons thing, they would get at least the name properly spelled. But again, this was such a thrown together thing that, again, is missing practically all important information. It's so absent of information that someone's having to go on there and alter the image just to try to glean a few more details about it. Yeah, here we go. See, and I think, I don't know. And again, I don't want to, you know, get too lost in the whole, like, oh, it's such a creepy image. But I think that, you know, again, you know, we're so driven by imagery, more than, say, the written word, that, you know, certain images stay with us. And I think that's what really got people's attention in this, beyond the strangeness of it all, was just the overall creepiness of and you see people starting to talk about that here. Someone calling it nightmare fuel, and these responses. I think that's why I'm finding it odd that people think this photo is creepy. I was an adult when all this happened, so I remember people who wore glasses exactly like that. The photo doesn't even seem, okay, well, this person's not creeped out. So that was kind of, but yeah, it's just got that creepy found footage type feel to it, which I can kind of, I think I see where they're going when they say that. Since it's an old, poor quality, silent clip of someone we cannot identify. It's like the Celine Delgado missing persons mystery on the, yeah. And that's exactly, a lot of people have made correlations between that, because that's another thing where it's like, we're not even certain if it's probably a real person, but again, it's this, and again, somebody with a Latin name. But yeah, the Celine Delgado, the image that goes, and this is, for those that don't know, this is another thing where there was like a particular channel, and it would report these missing persons things, and one of the missing people that came up was this Celine Delgado, and it was another thing where it was this really scratchy image that went with the missing persons thing. Yeah, here we go. Just for frame of reference. Oh yeah, and then somebody did something where they took these other images and put them over to suggest that maybe her image was like a mashup of things like this, that's nightmare fuel right there. No, thank you. And yeah, see, this isn't Celine, but this is the image. This is what those looked like. Yeah, see, so here's the Celine Delgado one. So you see, and this image it's very, pixely. It's not great detail, but you can make out so much more in this image, regardless of its background or validity. You can make out so much more of this than you can the Joanna Lopez one. You can literally, you can make out, the white spots in her eyes. You can make out her eyelashes, her very thin eyebrows, her nose, her nostrils, her upper lip, lower lip. You can see the part in her hair. All those details are there, but still, there's been correlations because people there's been questions like, who is this a real person? What is the background behind this? And people can't seem to find verification. It says some internet users that have confirmed that Celine Delgado Lopez. That's kind of interesting that her full name is also may have Lopez at the end of it. Not that Lopez is a rare name, but that two very specific stories like this that delve into the same very specific thing would have the same last name. Looks like this is somebody saying that they were randomly Facebook friends with this person. That's interesting. I've never seen this. This could, be fake as hell too. Who knows? They've confirmed that Celine Delgado Lopez is on their friends list, and the only thing they have done to avoid trouble is to block her profile. Now, of course, this obviously could be someone creating a fake profile, taking advantage of this situation. Yeah, you just got image after image of her. But anyway, so yeah, so there's obvious correlations between that and this particular situation. But anyway, so this goes on for there's like 300. But that's this particular bit kind of gives us a good general rundown on this whole strange thing. And yeah, again, there's really not a whole lot on here on this particular page, but there's stuff. And this is an update from same individual, and this is from 15 days ago, so this is updated. See if there's any. Okay, found the series. Oh, I think that this is just the updated part that was on there. Okay. But there's a few fresh comments. See what anybody else has to offer on the matter. This first one, and actually I want to say this, Throw It Out 773, I think, actually posted a lengthy thing on here that I want to get to. Just recently, I think they said that they were actually part of the juvenile system in Chicago. But first here, it says WMAQ NBC Channel 5. So it's their NBC affiliate. The clip you guys see is legit, saying it is definitely legit. Most kids in juvie in Chicago are Latino or Black. I remember similar missing persons PAs on either WGBO or WSNS in the early 90s on Spanish broadcasts with dark photocopied images. So this person's actually saying, I was around at this time, and I remember them kind of looking like this, which obviously gives some credence to it. And see, here's what I was discussing earlier. Somebody's saying, how do you know that this is real and not fake? But again, it was posted Museum of Classic Chicago Television, and they're saying that is a registered nonprofit. So it makes it hard to believe that this was, again, some recent fake. Somebody suggests an editing error. And here's somebody posing another possibility. Has anyone ever posited the theory that the PSA, while actually being aired back then, was just a prank by a station employee? Again, suggesting it wasn't real, or at least done by nefarious means. It could explain the lack of detail and low-quality photo, because whoever is in that photo doesn't actually need to be found. As for the number, it could have just been added in to make it seem somewhat real to whoever saw the broadcast live. It's a possible. I don't think that's. Obviously, everybody's just throwing theories around because it's all you really can do. I'm just making sure I'm covering all my bases. God, this whole thing just. Here's something from 9 days ago. Theory, Joanna was found. Maybe she went missing from a small town and was found somewhere after 1991. The case may have not made the news, and her case may have never been digitalized as it was solved. Here's a response. Except there was no actual case number to begin with, even in paper records. You see, because again, people really went into this. People put a lot of time and effort into trying to understand find anything that could give, validity to this case. And if it is a valid case, normally it's not that hard to find, other pieces of evidence that validate it. Even when I have this series I do called Mystery Murders, and it's about these people that have disappeared or turned up dead. Some of these cases I cover happened 40, 50 years ago, but even then I can find, general information about it, records, stuff posted on, most big cities, or even the counties will post, they'll have like listings of missing persons, or they'll have listings of cold cases. And usually you can find stuff fairly easily. And I'm talking about finding stuff that was way before 1989, but you can't really find, and this person here is saying there was no actual case number. So what does that mean? Does it mean this is not a real thing, or does it mean that there's just something amiss about all of this? If they were actually trying to get her found, why were there no mentions on radio, milk cartons, daytime news, posters, or really anything outside of an obscure bumper in the dead of night that literally no one other than bleary-eyed college students and stoners would see? Now, some of that stuff may have happened, and we just don't have any proof of it. For all we know, this missing persons thing could have been played at the end of the broadcast day on multiple other nights. We just don't have the visual proof of it, but it could have happened. These instances from 1989 and 1991 might not be the only times that this missing persons thing popped up randomly at the end of the day on Channel 5 in Chicago. And there may have been other things. She could have popped up on milk cartons. There could have been people putting up posters around town. This was over 30 years ago. We people just now looking into it wouldn't know if that was happening. Suggestion of the state or the mafia wanted to make her disappear for some reason. Seems like a bit of a stretch, but I understand and can appreciate the suspicion, the wonder. What if she was a test subject or along those lines? Not a single piece of information on her besides one photo, and they only aired it twice. It's very concerning. And it's not even that they only aired it twice, it's that they aired it 2 years apart. What had changed in that time in relation to this case? It seems nothing. So, endlessly strange. Let's see, it's very weird to me that either she was an orphan, considering the fact the phone number used, again, goes to the youth division of Chicago. That's one of the few, real pieces of information we have to follow if this is real, is, again, if the phone number is related to the youth division, it means she's probably underage, or, again, as we've discussed before, possibly escaped from a juvenile facility. Okay, so here we have Agitated Experience posted this 5 days ago, expressing that they have a theory. I think the unnamed lady was Joanna. I saw a YouTube video that brought me to this missing persons case, and the man who made the video showed the similarities, so it's possible they could be the same person. The last time when they showed her picture on TV was probably while she was still a minor, and in the missing persons file it was stated that the person who had killed the unnamed woman had picked her up claiming she was... Okay, so this is a reference to the woman who died in 1994. She was most likely an adult, and her body was found 3 years after Joanna was television for the first time. Putting together what we know and think, she could have been a runaway, but was found and ran away again, leading her to becoming a prostitute. There's some grammatical errors. Becoming a prostitute to be able to survive. It's really sad. The unidentified woman had screech marks. I'm guessing it's supposed to be scratch marks. So it could have been possible she had a child. Oh no, stretch marks. Okay, so it could have been possible she had a child. And because they didn't know her identity, they could not have checked her house to see if she had a child. So we don't know if she had a child, and if she did, we don't know what happened to the kid. So yeah, that's an obvious reference to this woman that was found in 1994 that's still been unidentified. And there's references to Nexpo's video as well. So let's see, Zaxxon Revolution, if I'm saying that right. Maybe she didn't go missing. Maybe it was a photo of a relative of someone who worked at the station that was used as a placeholder. More specifically, maybe that the footage that we are seeing is part of a larger segment that was intended not to be aired, but rather just to pitch the format of what the actual PSAS would look like a pilot for a TV series. And I understand where they're going with that. You know, you don't just say, hey, put a PSA together, and someone goes into a back room, it's just like, hope the boss likes this, it's going out anyway. You know, you prepare something, and then you check on it to see if it's going to work. And that maybe it was accidental that got posted, and so they just had a, very rough cut version of what they would make those look like when they actually did need to do a legitimate missing persons PA. So maybe, they could have just picked Joanna Lopez as a general name to use. They put a number on there that might be valid. A lot of missing people could be obviously runaway teens. So, why not use the youth division number of your police department in it? I mean, it doesn't sound absolutely insane to me. It would almost make me wonder if that is what actually was the case. And yeah, I can already see the next person down here suggesting this is, what if because Joanna Lopez, again, could have been a random name they pulled out of a hat. Joanna Lopez could have been the name of somebody that worked at the station, but wouldn't you be able to verify that pretty easily? And that's literally where this goes. So it's an interesting thought, but it's everything is so like, maybe this happened. That could have happened. What if this happened? And as troubling and as frustrating as that is, that's also what kind of makes it endlessly fascinating. And I think, so many people have just been pulled into this. What if, and look, even this person spelled Joanna a different way, like I was discussing earlier. And here's somebody suggesting, because you've got some more thoughts. What if Joanna Lopez wasn't her actual name? What if the person in the image was already dead? What if the person who reported her missing was her killer? That's dark. I just learned about this case, so I'm not very well informed, but does it mention who reported her missing initially? No, it doesn't report anything, except that she's missing, or was missing. And then next, and these are recent, these are from 3 days ago. My theory is that Joanna Lopez saw something she wasn't supposed to see, and she was actually trying to run away from the people behind the news station. That explains why there is a lack of information regarding her location, what her age, weight is, and rather just to be on the lookout. And that's definitely a stretch. You can't completely dismiss the whole, like, this is somebody that saw something they shouldn't have seen or knew something they shouldn't have known and it put them in danger. Maybe there's something to that. But to suggest that it had to do with people at the news station, that feels like a very, very long stretch to me. So yeah, we're getting kind of towards the and again, not too much is posted here, so that's why I'm going through all this. What if she's real but not missing? Posted by Powerful Might 2546. General information starts out. Name may be Joanna Lopez or maybe a fake name. The two different videos were published 3 years apart, which is weird. If you look at the exact amount of time the two different videos were posted. Yeah, it's well, and I just find it like, what are the? I still think it's so wild. The odds that these two individual videos that end with this same thing. That literally, if those videos weren't there, people wouldn't have, I think, as much of an interest in this thing as they do. But when, the 1989 one by itself is interesting, but then you have a second one showing the same thing, and that, that blows it out of the water. And I wonder, the people who posted this, like, were they aware that, these two different things existed? Were they creeped out and thought it was kind of strange to see a missing persons thing pop up at the end of the broadcast day? But again, it seems back in like 2012 and 2015 when these videos were posted, not a lot of people took an interest. I think, like, if I click on, okay, so this is, wait, what is this? Okay, this is another sign-off video from another time. I thought that was going to be, but what I want to do is I want to see if I can find whichever one, the 1989, 1990, whichever one. Yeah, so here's the one from 6 years ago. This is the 1989 video, so I'm not here to watch it. I just kind of want to glance at the... Okay, there's 343 comments. Yeah, see, here's somebody. I remember seeing this and other missing person slides, sometimes with a loud, annoying tone playing. That's kind of interesting because the one from 1991, the color bars and the tone come in shortly after. So, man, see, now you have one for Sissy. Like, I would expect to see a lot of comments from the past, month or so. And people talking about, end of the broadcast day, going to fall asleep and being woken up by that. Yeah, and I can identify with that. I see where you're coming from. I'm just curious. Okay, everybody, keep your eyes peeled for Joanna. She looks kind of like a Power Ranger. Okay, that's from 6 years ago. Because, yeah, I'm trying to see if anybody made this connection like a really long time ago. Because, again, this is such a recent thing. And you can see, again, most of these are just from a couple days to a couple months ago, 5 years ago. Could they have at least chose a not-so-scary missing person ad at the end? Besides, wasn't there a bit higher quality picture of Miss Joanna? That, plus, did they ever find her? So many questions, and there's responses. Oh, and these are actually old, too, up to this point. If they did, they'd have to have found her quick because the number doesn't work no more. I checked. So this person checked the number 4 years ago, and it was off then. I checked as well, Googled it, and it goes back to some building on Wacker Drive. Turns out the phone number was for the Chicago Police Youth Division. Yeah. So it's interesting because you're seeing people kind of discussing this a couple years ago and not realizing as much, obviously, as we do now. 4 years ago. My research indicates nothing on a Joanna Lopez. I would think if she was still missing, it would be known. Hopefully she is alive and well. So there were actual people looking into this a couple of years ago. which is interesting. Because again, I'm always wondering, like, who was the first person that made these connections? Give that person a medal. I never got why the channel would just randomly sign off. Well, that's how stuff ended. Weeks ago. I don't want weeks, I want years. And again, as I think about it, and it could have definitely been slipped, and including the fact that like the end of the broadcast day thing doesn't just fade out, but it cuts right over to that image. Could somebody have spliced that in there, either for nefarious reasons, a goof or a prank, or could it have possibly been somebody that or maybe knew more about this Joanna Lopez thing than other people and felt that it was maybe some very dark thing, and they felt that she needed exposure, and so when nobody was paying attention, they snuck that in there, because probably a lot of people, they kind of rely on one or two people to just kind of, you don't have to do much at a news station overnight, because you just put the color bars on and sit back. So someone could interject something like that in there overnight when maybe their boss isn't there or whatever. And again, I don't know how these news stations run or how they ran back at the end of the 80s, start of the 90s, but it seems that somebody could have easily snuck this in, and there wouldn't have even been anybody there to notice. Obviously, people at home could have seen it and been like, what the hell is this? That's it's a possibility. Tengo miedo en este momento. God, my Spanish is so rusty. Yeah. I hope someone watched this because a lot of people were probably coming on here just to see this for the heck of it, and then that popped up and it threw them back. It's from 5 years ago. Did they ever find Joanna? Dun dun dun. Welcome to Monday Night Football. What? And this person, weird picture, but this is also recently too. So so just now I want to back up and get the other one, the 19. This one. Just see if there's any. Yeah, see, this is from a year ago, and this is obviously the earlier version was even darker and worse. So obviously, this is being talked about a year ago, and there's probably responses. I was gonna say the responses are probably more recent, but you can see this is a year ago, and this person obviously knew about the 1989 one as well. The missing poster creeps me out. I bet it would creep you out too, being so late at night. Yeah, especially at a sign-off like that. Yeah. The number, this is from 3 years ago, the number that appears at the end seems to be on a really long loop of ringing and has no voicemail box. Wait, what? Also, nobody seems to be picking up the phone, which means... Oh, they're talking about actually calling the number. Sorry, that was going over my head. Nobody seems to be picking up the phone, which means whoever owns that number is no longer around, which that's a lot of people have come to that conclusion. So if you somehow in the 1% chance find the girl, do not call the number. It's a good idea. Here's from 4 years ago. I know WMAQ was still signing off the air in 1991, so I trust this recording to be legit, which I'm assuming is in reference to the fact that that thing pops up at the end. Yeah, and here. See, this is from 3 years ago, and it's being referenced. So this is not quite as new, and that's usually what happens in these things. It just, something will get noticed, and it'll be kind of a niche thing, and then it eventually either blows up or fades away. And there's reference to the 1994 case. Here, it's from 6 years ago. I remember seeing the color bar test patterns at about 5:25 a.m. back in June or July 1989. It's referencing 1989. I lived in Stone Park, Illinois at the time, only there was a higher note that would beep every second. By the way, is Joanna still missing? She was missing in 1989 and 1991. And this is from 6 years ago. And there's kind of... There's almost kind of this passive thing, like, hey, this thing popped up again. And so it's almost like these people weren't really aware of how strange this truly was yet. A lot of people probably just thought, like, oh, it's a missing persons thing. Like, those are normal. And they popped up. I guess by 1991, she hadn't been found yet. And here's the actual person that posted it. I don't know who they're responding to. It says, it's not, my clip is a bit higher quality and obviously does not include their tag. I rip everything off, off my old VHS tapes as a fun hobby. So this guy actually had this thing on VHS, according to his story. So it's just a coincidence that this guy randomly, at least this is what he's saying. The reason this is up here on YouTube is because this guy just randomly had it on a VHS tape from back in 1991. If that's true, that is crazy. And kudos to you. Anyway, I'm just glancing at that. I want to see how far back. So I reference as far back as 6 years ago to noticing the same thing. Okay, so back to this post. What if she's real but not missing? So I discussed kind of looking at this part, and it made me check the videos. So the two videos were published 3 years apart. This is reference to the YouTube posts. Also, the fonts are very different. One is a typewriter type font, my best guess being typewriter spool SFT, and the original being generic G20 FR Classic, which is a font used in many news broadcasts. There's also no one that notices before this posts. Of course, there is Joanna Lopez Google searches because of how common the name is, but for a news network to screw up this bad, even for the early 90s, is very unlikely. I do, however, think it's someone. I don't think they were ever missing. Unless someone finds where they got the source for the material or provides a VHS tape of the missing girl, I don't think it's anything special. Think how much news material would be to say if someone escaped from a juvenile detention. That's a free story. Instead, they provide no context. Now for the foster homes. That is not true. Foster homes aren't the best, but if a child runs away, they legally have to report them missing, or it can get them in trouble later. They would also know the name of the child too because of logs and files. So yeah, also kind of getting at the point that it's just like, why is there not more information about this person? I'm just kind of glancing through this. And again, suggesting, she could have, gotten mixed up in some rough stuff, possibly something like prostitution. Another question is, why did no one care? I sure would have cared if I saw this at night while watching the news. The way it cuts off the national anthem is another thing. Why would they do that? Which I was mentioning. It's just a cut. I know that this is pre-programmed to show the slides, so they would have had to have done it on purpose, or at least somebody would have had to have done it. So suggesting a viewer retention, a network hack. Obviously, networks had been hacked at this point. It happened a few times. But as far as why did no one care, you'd be surprised. I did a video in my in my series that I do about missing persons, unsolved murders, and there was a guy. God, I can't remember his full name, but J. Calvin Pringle was his name. And this guy lived in Medford, Oregon, and had traveled with a friend down to the LA area, where reportedly they had a falling out. He got pissed and kind of walked away from the guy he'd been traveling with. Left all of his stuff and his money with this other guy and just kind of walked away and just disappeared. So the guy he was with decides to go out and, spend some of his money in Vegas and all this dumb stuff. And so there's a lot of suspicion that the guy he was traveling with killed him at some point on their trip. And his whole story about them, Gardena, California, it's a neighborhood in LA area. So it's just a very strange, but the details of his disappearance. It was the late 70s. He traveled to California with his friend, this Robert Harry Kellogg. He says he got into an argument and Jay left with an unknown individual because, of course, if you kill someone, you got to make sure part of your cover story is, hey, last time I saw him, he left with some other mysterious person. So he ended up spending all of Jay's money. That's not suspicious. But this is a case, that it was astonishing to me how just nobody cared. I found pretty much no newspaper articles about it. The local police in Medford didn't seem to care. Authorities in California didn't seem to care. And this guy, he was still, he was only 17. He was still a teenager. And I was just astonished. Just nobody cared. In fact, I think the video I did, I focused in on, the neglected disappearance is what I called it. What happened to Jay Pringle and why did nobody care? Because that's what astonished me so much, was just nobody cared about this guy and his disappearance. I'm sure his family did, but there was just nothing after he disappeared. We just know that he disappeared and likely ended up dead. So you'd be surprised at how many people don't care. So a lot more. This person says the 1991 rerun can be instantly thrown out, 99% faked, as it doesn't show context to the video, and it just shows the anthem and the missing person slide, which is exactly the same as the Fuzzies video. Another thing to note is the description on the Fuzzy Memories video. It should have the PSA prefix, but it doesn't. This is a little mistake, but just another error in this whole thing. So that's the claim that the 1991 one is fake, or that it's possibly just taking the splicing out a piece of the 1989 one and just putting it in there and claiming it's from 1991. So the inference is that this video, that again, this guy says he ripped it off of old VHS tapes, claiming that that's fake, meaning that they would have had to have taken this, that this 1991 video was just a chunk taken from the 1989 one. But I don't think this part here shows up in the 1989 one. Because here's the 1989 one. Maybe I'm wrong. Of course, there's stupid ads to get through. I'm just trying to compare and contrast. Okay, never mind. It is here. So this is the same, because it kind of starts here with this. You get this, then the end of the broadcast day, and then this. So they are comparable. You have the end of the broadcast day, and then the one difference is when it switches over here to the Joanna Lopez imagery, it's very brief, and then it cuts to the bars and the tone. So that's the one thing that's different between the two. So to an extent, I can understand that. But what's interesting to me is that this is substantially... This is supposed to be ripped from the 1989 one, just taken from that. But if you look at them, here's the 1989 one, and here's the 1991 one. The one that's supposed to be ripped from this is in substantially better condition. Now, I guess somebody could have, messed with it, used a sharpening tool or whatever. That's certainly a possibility. Obviously, that comes down to the origin of this. Is the guy that has this YouTube channel, telling the truth. Which is such an interesting thing, because this whole thing is riding on whether this is a valid... I mean, obviously, the story of Joanna Lopez, this missing person, who are they? That obviously is the focus of this whole thing. But, one of the biggest, most intriguing elements of it has been the fact that this thing randomly pops up 2 different years. And it is, now obviously, if this was taken off some random old tape from 1991, they may not have the specific date on it, because that's another thing is, it's been said that this is specifically from January 14th, 1989, whereas this is just, it's from 1991. So, maybe there's an argument, I don't know. Obviously, I can't state for certain whether this may have been faked or not. And here's a lot of resources, at least in reference to... So that's one person's look at things. And here's a general outline. And again, obviously you can go to this Reddit. It's easy to find. It's, Joanna Lopez. You can just type in the regular name, Joanna Lopez, and you'll find it pretty easily. Okay, here's the reference to the first sign-off from 1989, the phone number, and then 1991, again, mystery, and... So, 1991, Child Fatality Investigative Procedure Manual. So, this is from 1991, the same year that the second clip supposedly appears. And yeah, I have to... shows the number as being for Commander Joe P. Mayo, Chicago Police Department, Youth Division. So that's still checks out. Here's a reference to the unidentified woman. Here's when the 1989 one was uploaded. Oh, okay, so actually, it was posted by these guys in 2015 on YouTube, but it was originally posted on Fuzzy Memories in 2009. Because that's another thing is, like, if the 1989 one wasn't even available till 2015, how could the one from 1991 that was published almost 3 years earlier be faked if it wasn't even available yet? But you could have obviously taken it off of here. You'd have to remove the Fuzzy Memories logo, however, that's down in the corner, and that wouldn't necessarily be too hard. Yeah. And then, 2021. So, still, it's a very recent thing. But there was a recent... I wanted to cover this. Okay, I checked this out. Throw It Out 773, who I mentioned earlier. Who this is looks like the most recent post on here from 2 days ago. So this is where I will probably leave off with this particular video. I wasn't planning on talking about it for this long, but like I said, I've been pulled into this thing, and I'm just This is not about me trying to be an expert on this. This isn't about me trying to solve this thing. This is just, this really caught my attention, and I'm just going through what is available out there and what people think, and, what do I think, and how can my thoughts about that and your thoughts be changed by, this analysis that people are trying to do on this thing and just trying to make sense of this. So, Throw It Out 773, Chicago's Youth Division. Unfortunately, I'm too familiar with Chicago's Youth Division. I grew up in Chicago's juvenile detention system in the 90s, and I was missing for a short time. My family had to deal with Chicago's Youth Division throughout my childhood. The Joanna Lopez PSA has 3 things: a phone number, picture, and a name. The phone number is the Youth Division Police Department number and not the regular Chicago police number. That picture is the picture on file, a bad photocopied picture, but it's what most our pictures looked like on file in the 90s. And again, this is a person who is claiming to have been in the detention system, which, people are at least theorizing this Joanna Lopez was also a part of. That name was the name on her records. The Youth Division has a record on her, that I can guarantee. The police from Youth Division of Chicago would work with social workers, case workers, probation officers, and families of children who had some sort of record in the system. It could be anything from foster care, runaway, or a criminal record. Why can't you find info on her? Well, that may be because of her age when she was missing. See, records in Chicago are split up, adults from the youth. This means if you wanted records from a juvenile, you would have to get that from the juvenile social worker and or court systems. This is not going to happen, as it's pretty hard to get records on juveniles in Chicago. My family has tried. I don't know who she is. I grew up with kids just like her. Some of us didn't make it, but God bless her, and I hope she is safe now. Edit. I had to get fingerprinted from the Youth Division courts to get my old records, including missing persons reports. So this person is explaining, their personal experience and providing, at least from their experience, an explanation why the picture looks so crappy, why, and stating that, if this is a real person, then Joanna Lopez was absolutely her name. It would be her name on her records, but also explaining why it's been so hard for people to find information about this person. And discussing here how hard it is, even for people that were directly in the system, to get, information for family. Obviously, I've never been in this system. I wasn't in this system at this time. I can't validate or invalidate any of this information. This is one person's perspective who states that they were part of this system and in the 90s, so pretty close proximity to this Joanna Lopez situation. And that, as I can see, is the most recent post on this page. I'm just going to try one more time. No, I'm just trying to clear this space. Sorry. It's because there's the... Yeah, and here's another story comparing the Joanna Lopez and Selena Delgado situation. And here's a analog horror, and this is referencing it and kind of saying what other stuff is out here, or out there that might be kind of along. Yeah, and so this is recent because it's after watching Nexpo's Disturbing Things Volume 13, which, again, that's the first thing that I saw on there, kind of diving in, discussing other things that are could be deemed similar to this. I'm just seeing if anything has happened even less than just 2 days ago. I doubt it. And here's the just looking at this is the 1994 case of this unknown or unidentified woman that was killed, and suggesting that they may be the same person. And I feel like Joanna has a more straight bridge on her nose, whereas this woman has her bridge isn't really super defined, but the base of her nose is. I mean, if it is just, these pictures just don't fit super well. And they tried to, with this image here, alter. I'm assuming this one's just been altered. Took this one and altered it to make it, more comparable to this one by flaring out these white spots. But again, and this was like some 5 years later that this woman was killed. It just doesn't seem that likely to me that this is the victim. But, I'll never say never unless I have absolute definitive proof to say so. Here's a reference to a web sleuth posting from 9 years ago. It'd be crazy if this is 9 years ago talking about the Joanna Lopez case, but I think this is them talking about this 1994 victim. And maybe some references if somebody's even been on here and commented in the last. Because, this is all from 2012, some stuff from 2014. There might be someone who popped on here, recently to mention the Joanna Lopez thing. Maybe there's a correlation. It doesn't look like anything in relation to that. I just thought I'd glance. But it looks like that's pretty much it. That one posting from that person who says they've been through that juvenile system. That's the most recent thing put up in relation to this case, at least on Reddit, and that's kind of the primary spot that this is being talked about. So that was just me kind of diving into what people have been discussing, and it's this thing that's really started picking up a lot of traction in, recent weeks, and in the last, 3 to 4 weeks has kind of reached its peak, and especially popping up on 2 very notable YouTubers' channels. I just got sucked in, and I just find it really fascinating, regardless of what the reality of the situation is, and we probably won't ever know for certain what that reality is. This had all those things that get my attention. There's the mystery, there's the unknown, there's the kind of old media side to it, with almost kind of a VHS old school format look to it. So there's a lot of different things that I'm into that all kind of come together in this random, bizarre mystery. And I'll be keeping my eye on this. Who knows what'll happen in the future if somebody randomly stumbles onto something that's kind of a game changer in all this. But somehow I doubt that's going to happen. We'd have to be way too lucky. But I have to think that this is, this is a real thing. It's just a crazy thing. That's it. I just wanted to, it's been in my head off and on for like a week, and I'm like, I gotta start talking about this, or I'm just gonna go nuts. That's it. And I'd like to thank you all for stopping by, hanging out with me as I delve into this bizarre mystery. So thank you so much for stopping by. Remember, if you haven't done it yet, new to the channel, what have you, remember to like, share, subscribe. I've got a Patreon page if you want to help my channel out that way. Links in the description. And other than that, Thank you so much for stopping by. This has been Steve the Amateur Historian, and I'll see you next time.